Right.
All right. Hi, this is Greg Anderson with the Living in Carver County podcast. It's an insider's conversation with the people who make Carver County the best place to live, work, and raise a family. So, my guest today is Chaska Mayor Taylor Hubbard. Taylor is relatively new to the position of mayor, but she's been on the council for a while, and we're gonna talk about kind of dish about all things Chaska today. So, Taylor, thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you for the invitation.
So let's start with let's talk a little bit for people who don't know you or your backstory or where'd you grow up, go to school? How is it that you came to be mayor of Chaska?
Gee whiz, how far back do you want me to go? No. So I grew up mainly in Minnesota. My family moved here in 1989. I was in second grade. So if you can do the math, I'm 43. And I grew up in, actually li lived in Eden Prairie and Chanhassen. And then fast forward, when I was getting married, my husband and I rented from the townhomes or those apartment townhomes at Hazeltine Shores for about 2 years. But then we bought our home in Chaska, which is where I currently reside. Same home today. So I've lived here in this community for over 20 years. I am a Chaska High School alumni. And my, I guess, start with being in regards to the city was just like a lot of folks start, there was something happening in my neighborhood that our neighbors weren't exactly thrilled about. And that was it was a park with a ball field that had lights. We were not opposed to the park. It was the lighted ball field that was a little bit upsetting for our neighbors. And so my first interaction, I guess, with the city was in regard to that project. And at the time, you know, it was voted and approved, but there were some changes made that kind of help better serve the residents in regard to the playground portion of it and make it kind of a better project all the way around. And while, of course, at the time I was like, oh, these lights are going to be terrible. They're going to really affect my quality of life. And it's going to be this and that. And all the things that you can kind of think up and conjure up when something like a change is going to happen and you don't know what it's going to look like and you don't think you're going to be thrilled with it. Um, I've experienced that personally as a resident and found that that wasn't the case. And it's been a great asset over to our community. And with that, one of the city council members actually approached me after that and said, "Hey, are you interested in being on a city commission?" So then I joined the Human Rights Commission back in, I think it was 2006 or 2007. And
Hmm.
I served for about 6 years before really stepping away. I own my own business, and so that was sort of really taking off, and I just kind of needed that time. So I served 2 terms. And then when there was a special election that was being announced, I actually went out for the temporary appointment, thinking that would just be a really fun and unique opportunity to serve the city again and kind of be in that sort of role and capacity. While I didn't get selected for that, I did get approached by some citizens that thought, hey, we read over your application for this temporary appointment. We think that you could run for this council seat and be a really great asset and have good perspective up on the council. And so I decided to go all in and run, and I was elected. And so I've served about 5.5 years. So my term is a little bit of a weird term length because of that special election before running and then being voted in as mayor.
Okay.
A
So
long answer.
do you want to talk about your business at all or not so much?
Well, I mean, so I'm happy to talk about it, but my focus, I do a lot of, par car car compartmentalizing, where it's like,
Sure.
okay, I'm
That's
here
fine.
and I'm focusing on this and I'm here and focusing on that. I own a photography studio in a neighboring community. I have a storefront business in the community, and so I have a perspective of what a small business owner faces and all of the triumphs and challenges that come about with owning a business and having staff. And really, that sort of entity. But at the same time, I also, I'm a mom and I have my own personal hobbies and I have a love for all things city. So it's just one of the many facets, I guess, that go into my life.
All right. Well, that's a nice segue. So, what's exciting going on with the city of Chaska besides road construction? Um, not that you
I
have a
know.
lot of control over
I was
that,
just
but
gonna say, well, I mean, we do,
I get it.
yeah,
I'm just teasing
yeah,
you because that seems
no,
to be the pervading.
absolutely. Well, it affects everyone's daily life. So it's an understandable, um, gripe on, I guess, from a citizen perspective, even for myself, there was road construction, Engler, I live right outside of Engler. So that start of the summer, that was when the first roundabout being built. I was, dealing with those challenges, and then even going into work and then in this community where my studio is, Waconia, there was road construction in town right in front of my studio all summer. So I can understand the road construction complaint.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
we've lived with it with my business too. When, 2 years ago, it was tore up all summer long,
Yep.
and then obviously the roundabout. And if you're going to Waconia from Chaska when Bavaria's closed, there's not a quick loop around on that.
No,
So,
absolutely not. So, no, so I mean, some of the fun things that are, I guess exciting things that are happening in Chaska, we are getting ready to wrap up the public safety campus. That's going to be opening up probably right at towards the end of the year here in December. There's a little bit of delays last year with construction, just with weather. And then also, we have some new businesses that have opened up downtown and some new amenities like there was a bike path that the bike trail that kind of runs underneath 41 that takes you from Carver all the way, Hopkins into the cities. That opened up. Uh what else is let me look at my notes here because I know every time I always get asked that, oh, we're getting ready to start the planning process actually tonight at the council meeting for the municipal service building. That is another really exciting entity. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk about any specific things that you want to touch on.
all right. Well, let's chunk out. Let's just briefly talk about the first responder building. I know there was some controversy around that in the context of the previous building. So maybe if you want to speak to that just briefly about from your perspective, why this is a good thing, why people should be uh, on board with this, or dissuade some of the
Yeah.
consternation around that.
Yeah. So, these buildings, so the public safety building, for those that don't know, is going to have both our police department and our fire department. Uh, so with the building of these buildings, we looked at the existing police station, which for those that maybe don't know, is currently resides inside of our city hall.
Well,
It
in
was
the basement of the city.
in the basement of the city hall, and it was severely undersized for both the police department of our size and the community of our size. And really, these buildings were built at a time when our community was about 10,000 people, and now we're at 30,000 people. And so we sat down and during a strategic retreat that we have every single year where the council gets together with the department heads of city staff and we look at and evaluate what are some of our bigger strategic goals. And one of those goals is that we want to have both quality facilities, but also quality services. And while I feel as though our police department and fire department are both of quality service, uh, there gets to be this sliding scale, I guess you could say, or a give if you don't have proper facilities to continue those services. And we were kind of running at that point where we knew we needed to build a building that was sufficient for our fire department. And we had always had envisioned that being kind of alongside of the fire department. Now, the original plan was that we were going to add on to the fire department and kind of remodel that fire department space in order to house the public safety campus. But when we were evaluating things deeper and deeper into the planning process, architecturally and financially, we found that it really wasn't a big cost savings to keep that existing building. And in fact, it could have been a higher cost. As you know, if anybody that's remodeled anything, as you start tearing things up and ripping things apart, some things become an added expense. And it would have been a little bit of a harder fit retrofitting some of the HVAC and other components of that existing building. And so it just made more financial sense to tear it down, in my opinion. It also made bigger sense in terms of how each of those departments was going to function to the best of their ability and be able to grow in those buildings to the best of their ability. Now, I say that with the recognition that I realize that a lot of residents were upset about a building, the fire department being torn down. I can hold on. Sorry, I'm at my studio, so I can I can relate to the idea that, or I can recognize that, when we hit that point as a council and had to make that decision, we did a lot of communicating to the public that, hey, this building program is going to happen, and these are the buildings, because it's more than just the public safety campus. There's also the municipal service building as part of this program. There's the remodel of City Hall and the building of the library. So, these four things, and the public safety campus was number one on this list because it was the most urgent of need, that we found that we should step back. And while we were communicating the whole building program, when this big change kind of came about, we should have maybe stepped back and said, okay, public, this is what we have found, and this is the decision that's in front of us, and this is what we need to do. And really message that as hard as we can. And maybe we didn't go about that entirely. And I understand that maybe the public kind of felt a little blindsided by the fact that, here's this building that was going to be retrofitted and remodeled. And now we're like, okay, it just makes more sense to tear it down and start over and build something that's really going to be, a better functioning building. And the reasons why I think are very applicable, you talk about, our fire department having, a safe setting in order to, they come into a lot of cancer causing chemicals to be able to have their gear and equipment, be able to do their turnout gear and have that be something that they can, you know, compartmentalize so that they can stay safe, that we keep them safe. That's just one of the components as to why the big change. So.
Okay. So maybe just for people who aren't up to speed on it, so the police department, the fire department is going to be occupying the space in addition to the police department, which is currently occupying the basement of the city hall.
Yes.
And so what happens to the basement of the city hall?
Yeah, that's a great, so that will eventually get remodeled and repurposed for city staff, for all the city departments that work internally inside of City Hall.
Okay.
Um, we, you know, again, our staffing levels, as the city grows, you have to add more staff in order to kind of, be able to facilitate the services of a functioning city. And so, some of our departments are really crammed in tight spaces. We have other departments that are off-site because they literally physically can't be inside of City Hall right now. And there's also a major lack of meeting space, in order to kind of have conference space for them to do their daily work.
All right. So then you mentioned the library. Do you want to talk about that? Is that a city, completely a city expenditure? Is there a county's involved with that? Because it's usually part of the Carver County library system. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so you are correct, Greg. The city pays for the building, and the county pays for the staffing and also the materials of that building. So the books and the furniture and infrastructure inside of that. And so again, our library is severely undersized for a population of our size. And one of the things that hinders the Chaska Library, and they do a great job of, you know, best utilizing their space, but the programming space. There's a lot of story time with kids and things along those lines that could happen there. And they do, but they kind of have to keep them at a minimum or keep it scaled down, whereas it should be in kind of a bigger setting and be able to kind of really adequately provide for the citizens of Chaska.
So where's the new library going to go then?
Right across the street, where the block of where kind of the DMV is located.
All right.
But the DMV is not going away. It's just
That's was going to
in
be my
that
next
in that
question.
block.
So
Yeah, I was
it's
like,
in the
it's
last section.
probably yes.
Because at one point that was, I think, there were like two referendums ago where the county at that point was going to put in a separate building and which would then the DMV would have moved over um and that would have been gone too. So
Yeah.
um
Yep, you are correct. So
okay. So this is the shuffle. So the new library gets built, library moves out. At that point, then the city will have absorbed the space that currently is the library as well as the space that's currently the police department. That if I'm am I mistaken that that should suffice to the as far as the space requirements from the end of the growth cycle? Because obviously at some point we stop growing, right?
yeah,
We
we
max
so
out.
yeah, that's a good thing to touch on. So, as I touched on in kind of the beginning, I said when these buildings were built, we were a community of 10,000, and now we're at 30,000. Our estimated population size will be roughly about 38, 39,000, according kind of to what the Met Council sets, based on their kind of preliminary estimates. And so that is where our aim is. And yes, it would suffice for the needs of that population. And I think that's the important thing to hit on too, that this is the time that we need to do. We are still in a growth cycle. We're still building residential, we're still building commercial, and we're still building industrial. And that actually is one of the exciting things too, is that we have some industrial, coming on online soon in the next, couple of years here. And that provides benefit for all of us as taxpayers
And
to the
we'll talk about
community.
that in a second. Let's talk about so the projections are is it the Met Council that's kind of setting those, or is that based on the comp plans that you send up to Met Council and then I mean where kind of who decides where we max out? Because I mean it's the only way we can essentially grow is through an annexation of the townships, right? I mean at some point we're I mean geographically kind of
Yeah, we're
blocked.
kind of at that point where like geographically, we've almost hit our borders. And you're right, there's annexation agreements that are in place with other municipalities and the townships. We have a little bit more, we also, Chaska, like you said, with the comprehensive plan, we also have what we call a green belt. And so that's like an area that, around our city that we really don't want large development happening into. We kind of want to keep that, I guess you could say that visual separation of, hey, you're coming into Chaska now. So I guess with that being said, the only other way is kind of through redevelopment. But yeah, our uh, open field space is almost all gone. So
All right, so 39,000 we have officially hit 30,000 then?
we're
Or
really close.
unofficially.
We're like 150 people off, according to the
Uh,
last thing I looked at. So
okay, all right. So that's a big deal because
yes.
I didn't realize we were quite there yet. But
Yeah.
all right, so 30,000, 39,000 at peak, and then the city will the building currently a city hall should be able it should be adequate to service us at full capacity.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now
Yeah.
the last building you mentioned was the Public Works building. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So right now we are getting started on the planning process for that. Just like any project that comes through the city, we as a council look at it three different times. There's the concept plan, which is like kind of that big overview.
the wish list or
Yeah, the wish list, that, looking at it from 10,000 feet, that sort of thing. And then there's the preliminary plan, which is more of the nuts and bolts of it. And then the final, which is kind of like crossing the T's and dotting the I's sort of thing. And so right now, the municipal service buildings is in the concept plan phase. And when we, again, kind of started that process, our existing municipal service building is a great facility. Again, this is the same situation. It's just heavily undersized for the number of staff that work out of that building and also storage of fleet. Um, we have
when you say fleet, you're talking about
vehicles. You talk about your plow trucks. You talk about some of the mechanical equipment that's used to repair.
dump trucks, land
Yep. And even
lawnmowers,
like our
snow
mechanical
plows.
bays, like the
Okay.
number of mechanical bays that we can have, existing right now in the building, all of that stuff is severely undersized for a city of our size and need.
So is that where the municipal vehicles, like for example, the police cars or the cars that that the building inspectors or whatever drive, is that where they all serviced out of that same facility or
Yeah, I mean they're all serviced out of that. The vehicles that like the inspectors use, I'm assuming they might be parked in like a different location, but I'm talking about like your, street sweeper, your jetty for the water, department, your
the
plows, the
big
dump
stuff?
trucks. Yeah, the big stuff
Okay.
is
All right.
housed
Fair
in there.
enough.
Yeah. Uh,
Okay.
and so in the planning stages of that, when we were initially looking at that, we saw that we were we were planning to add on to the building. Now, if for those that don't know where our municipal service building is located, it's right off of kind of Engler and Bavaria. And there's a wetland over there, and there's also the big Excel Tower power lines that kind of run through. And so we were going to pay to move one of those towers, power lines, and at the time we were quoted $750,000 to move it. This was kind of around 2020-ish, somewhere in that vicinity. I can't remember the year. We went back as like kind of things, were more, going into the planning phases, did a estimate cost with Excel and ended up being severely more expensive. $3 million was what they had quoted. And
Wow.
so that really kind of pivoted us to say, okay, what are our alternative options? Well, there was land that was going to be made available kind of in the corner of the city. It's uh, over by Creek Road, kind of little south of our industrial park that just got built with it's got DBAT is in there along with like swag
The one that's
pop it
accessed
in.
off 10. Yeah,
Yes.
all those
I'm like,
buildings that are best like Dave Harvey and Chad Doctor's building, the medical building, then past
yes.
that's all the new stuff. What is it?
Oh,
Impress and the batting thing and then a
yes.
bunch of office industrial. So kind of off south of that. For
Yes.
people who didn't know where that is, so right off
Yes.
at
I'm like,
10.
I can't remember. It's
Yeah,
like
just past
Chaska, it's
the
like
past the
Chaska
Clover,
Creek
past the
Boulevard
entrance
or
to Clover.
yes, exactly. And so that site lent itself to be a really kind of an ideal setting. Our public safety campus, kind of backing up, should be centrally located within our city, right? Um, and a place that like for our first responders so that they can quickly get to things. Our public works has a little bit more flexibility. And so, the location of that, we need the land space in order for the building, but we also don't have to worry about, okay, is it in the radius of, centralized into the community? And so uh we found that it was a major cost savings to go ahead and put the municipal service building on that property and then build the building for the municipal service building and then use the existing site that we currently have as what we consider to be like cold storage. So again, storing vehicles and things that are needed for like the dirt and salt and sand and everything like that. But this building will better serve and be set up better functionally where things like being able to drive through the garage. I know it sounds like a little thing, but really in aspects of being able to kind of operate efficiently and effectively, having that ability to drive in and just drive out and not having to move around all these different vehicles to get one vehicle out. I mean, these are some of the challenges that we're facing right now and would be in the future.
And
So
all of this is covered under the, for lack of a better way, the spending initiative that was initiated. This isn't coming back up for additional funding
no,
requirements.
this is all this was our building plan. And with like you talked about our budget, it was a 4-year funding plan that we were attaching on to our budget every single year to kind of scale that up. And when we evaluated that, I know because that's a big common question that gets asked is, it just seems like a lot all at once. But when we sat down and we evaluated the construction costs of all of these buildings and the tax impact, we found that the longer we stretched that plan out, the higher it was going to cost to build those buildings, and the financial cost savings just wasn't there. It wasn't there in the sense that we needed to really look at it and to the growth numbers of what the community is at today and what could be supported. And we felt that, it was a safe plan to put forward for 4 years in order to kind of like a step it up each year, um, and have it cover well without it being too um, hard for citizens, as far
Well,
as the.
and it's also, I think, hard to keep coming back to the well over and over again. And
Mhm.
so it's kind of the problem that seems like that the county's having presently with the state, a couple of years ago when they kind of ran the table on all these expenditures and these mandates, and then there wasn't a provision in place for permanent funding.
Right.
So now you have unfunded mandates where if you start these projects and then if you're having to keep coming back to try to get additional funding, I can imagine poses a significant challenge.
Well, and that, yeah, I mean, and I know that when past councils, when anybody sits up in this position, it is it's a rewarding and it's a challenging position to be in because your goal is to be a good stewards of other people's money and to make sure that you're adequately spending. But you also have to look out for the community as a whole and make sure that the services in the community are taking care of the residents and how can, what are the unintended costs if you don't do something? And so, prior councils made other decisions, but some of the delay on some decisions down the road kind of lead to, okay, we need to do this and we need to do it now. We need to make sure that we have these facilities functioning at their best now. And as long as I'm sitting here in this position, I can't turn a blind eye and look away from things that I know are going to be problems and are currently problems. And so figure out a way to have a solution to fix those things and do it in an economical sense and do it in a sense that's going to be, good to take care of the city and also, the financial impact of, your on your wallet. But at the same time, also set it up for the future so that hopefully, future councils won't be faced with having to make really hard decisions. And that's always just been like a personal goal of mine.
Okay. All right. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about development that's not coming out of taxpayers' money.
Okay.
What are some things that are in process? I know occasionally, I don't know if it's just morbid curiosity or what, but I will sometimes read threads or read a conversation thread on some of the Facebook groups. And as frustrating as it is, one of the things that comes up is everybody was freaking out about the trees getting cut down, for example, at Pioneer and Hunter Mark for the senior building, which is what my recollection is that's been in the works for at least 3 years.
Yeah, that was signed that was finalized, yeah, couple years ago. I can't remember exactly, but
But I mean, from the original proposal, that's been
right.
quite some time.
Yeah.
But what are some other developments that maybe people aren't aware of? Obviously, not having a Herald kind of makes it difficult to stay abreast
Yes.
of what's getting proposed. So maybe speak to some of the developments that are coming, both residential and commercial that people may not be aware of.
Sure. So I think one of the things that's really great on our website, we have I'm just looking to see exactly what it's called, but we have a page dedicated to, you know, the developments that are happening in
Hmm.
town. And so I always say, not to, point people there without answering questions or anything like that, but that's the really nice thing is that we have a page dedicated to these projects, proposed projects. And so it has all of the information as far as like where it's at in the planning process, if there has been meetings on it, between either us or the planning commission and kind of where things are at. And so sometimes when things like that happen, it's always really good to plug that and just let people know that,
I
this
can
is like
put a link to
available.
that page. I look at it a lot. I could
Perfect.
I could put a link to that in the show notes if you'd like, so
Yeah, that
people
would
can
be
see it. But I
great.
was just giving you a chance if there was
Oh yeah,
anything
no, and I get
that
it.
you're
And I
you're
so
excited
okay,
about.
so we have a manufacturing facility that is heading towards their final called Edco. They're located in Hopkins, but they're opening up another facility here in Chaska or proposing to, and they make siding, and they're going to be bringing
And gutters and
jobs and economic development here. Obviously, one of the more popular ones that had happened was Costco. I was just in there yesterday and it was bonkers in there. And I was looking at it going, as part of that, and just seeing kind of all the people and the energy in there and just the economic benefit to our community. We have like I said, future industrial kind of coming on line. So there will be, future end users in regards to
so
that.
where are you talking about? Are you talking about that area off Creek Road,
Yep.
or where is
Yep.
there any is because the sort of the north area is pretty much at capacity, isn't it? There's
Yeah,
not.
I don't think that there is any opening
When I say the north
buildings.
area, for people who don't know, I'm talking about that area around PV, basically south of line. It's kind of that right at the north border of the city.
Yep.
So east of 41 and west of Audubon and that industrial park off of Lyman or south of Lyman. So, but that's pretty much at capacity. Is that not right?
Yeah, I can't think that there is off the top of my head of any industries that or any space that's available over there.
All right.
And
So this Creek Road
we do
parcel.
have some smaller commercial spaces that just were recently built. The Chaska Tech Center that sits over next to Southern Social. There might still be availability down there and
Hmm.
over off of 41 up by where
Past Costco or just south
past
of,
past
north of
Costco, but it was
Costco. Right, right.
yeah, you know where I'm talking about. I just
Yeah,
can't remember
where
what
Treehouse used to be.
Treehouse used to be. Thank you. I was like, I can't remember. That was
He's almost at capacity. I think they've only got like one or two bays left out of that whole
okay.
thing,
See, and
which
I
is,
know that, that looked like things were filling in, but didn't know exactly where things are at. You're the expert as far as in the real
well,
estate
I
world.
well, I was just that one I know because I talked to the
It's like,
owner, but I mean I was surprised because it's sort of a, it's a unique building, and it's
yeah.
and there's actually I think you can sell gold and silver in there. I mean, because it seems like with the garage doors that it would lend it's just a seemed like a different type of space. So his tenant mix is really interesting given how the building was built. But
Yeah. Cloud HQ is another one that I know. It's a data center that's being proposed over off of Engler, kind of right outside of the Clover Ridge neighborhood,
mhm.
uh, and over by a couple of existing data centers. That's still in process. That's kind of between the preliminary plan and final plan. So I'm not sure where that sits as far as within Cloud HQ, but that's still something that's lingering out there. And then there's some other kind of residential, developments that are. happening mainly down in the big woods area, and our community park is also something that is going to be coming in the next couple of years. Yeah,
Want to buy some tickets, Taylor?
I already have somebody already hit me up for the raffle tickets. Which that music festival is amazing. So I have to photograph a wedding, so I won't be there until maybe later. But
Well, the headliner seems to be drawing in people. We actually have people coming to stay at our place who are coming specifically for the concert. And
really,
yes.
yeah, you guys
So,
have a good ear to the ground. You getting the
but so
talent.
talk about that. So the point of the music festival for people who maybe don't know, what's the nature of that park and where are we at with that?
Yeah, so I mean, this is where community partnerships matter. And one of those partnerships is with our Chaska Rotary Club. I know they've been fundraising for a Miracle League field for that community park. So the community park is going to be built off of, yeah, Big Woods Boulevard, kind of right there off of the roundabout, kind of outside of the Harvest neighborhood and Founders Ridge, and you'll be able to see it, from 212. But that park, although I can't remember how many acres it is, it's a lot of acres. It's going to be kind of our last big community park, and that Miracle Field is part of that, as well as a universal playground, so a playground for kids of all abilities. But then there's going to be some other really great components as part of that park as well. Right now, we are in the planning stages of that. What those components specifically are, I'm not sure yet, just as we haven't finalized anything, but we have done a lot of outreach to the community and just to see what do they want to see from this park. And the feedback has been amazing. And it's been really wonderful to see kind of the ideas drawn up. And I am very, very excited to see what it will
Eh,
entail.
For yeah, for people who don't know, it's the deadhead on the roundabout at Savannah Way and Big Woods Boulevard. And then, but part of that property, that because it's just a big honking piece of empty land right now, but part of that's also owned by the school district, and that was supposed to be the next. Again, had the referendum passed, there probably already be, few years ago, there'd probably be a elementary school there already.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So the school is still, I mean, there's still, a vision for the school being as part of that site. But the park, itself, is kind of in the planning stages.
mhm.
Also, as part of that, we were able to get grant funding in order to preserve the big woods at the southern part of that plat, where it provides, I think, a real opportunity to have like a nature walk or some sort of kind of real natural setting as an element as part of this parks, more than just, because sometimes when people think of parks, they think of like ball fields and, playground equipment. This is going to have like a very nature-esque component of it as well. That will be, I think, a shining jewel to add to all of our natural amenities that we already have in our community. I'm sure many people use our trails. We have over 70 miles in trails. We also have a lot of different community parks and neighborhood parks, within this community as well.
Nice, nice. I'd be remiss, having spent too much time on Facebook, I'd be remiss if I didn't take the two big things that seem to drive everybody nuts. KFC building, anything going
Okay.
on? There's a dumpster there. So
Um, I don't know. So,
I always tell people when people complain, I'm like, it's for sale. You should buy it
yeah.
and do
Um,
something with it because it always says the city should or somebody should. It's either the
I
city should or
know.
somebody should. But I
It's
mean,
a
it's owned
yeah.
by somebody.
It's a shared I share the same sentiments, I
The
would love to
yeah,
see
it's a little bit
something
of an eyesore.
happen. And part of this job is learning that, you know, the wheels move slow sometimes, and they move slow for a reason. They move slow when in order to properly inform, engage, make sure that things are done well. And that also goes with redeveloping sites that really need redevelopment. And you know, there will be something there, hopefully within
Well,
the
I
next
drove by the
several
other day.
years.
There was a
But
dumpster there,
what that is,
that's
I know.
progress for 10 years of sitting empty.
So
But
the building was purchased last fall
mhm.
and kind of sat, and the owner of the building, I don't know if that they were really aware of the full extent of renovations that were needed. But they are aware now, and we'll see what happens with that. That's all I can
I
really say
was in
about
there a dozen years ago. It was a science project, so I can't even imagine. Then the other one and the other building is that people seem to have a lot of curiosity about is the old Cooper store.
it. Okay.
So,
Yeah. Oh
so
yeah, so that one is a little less ambiguous. That one was purchased by a grocer, and the exact name of the grocer escapes my tongue here, but it's going to be a grocery store still. The company that bought that, they have some existing locations already within the Twin Cities. One of them's in Savage. That's the one that's kind of closely referenced. And they bought our that one in Chaska as well as another one, and so they chose to renovate the other one first. And so I think, again, anytime you do any remodel and renovation, I'm sure plans maybe move a little slow. So from what I was told recently is that they're going to be starting kind of towards the end of the year.
mhm.
So hopefully,
And I'd heard the same thing there, and it's in Mercado, and it'll be a kind of a Hispanic market with
yep.
probably dining options, some light dining options, and then a kind of a grocery store thing. So
Yeah, yeah. So that will be wonderful. I know one of the things door knocking from residents feedback was that they really did miss having Cooper's, located downtown, and it was feeling a little bit like a food desert down there. So, um, happy to help them get
well,
set
yeah,
up.
well, and I think
So,
that, I mean, I think the challenge is it's hard for the city to pick winners and losers. I mean, someone owns that building and they have a financial interest in getting it either sold or getting another tenant in there. The entire space potentially could have been in play for a larger development. Honestly, I thought when people asked me, I thought it's either going to be a Mercado or somebody like Roar might come in and then buy the whole mall and knock it down and then put in a building like the one in Victoria where it's commercial on the main floor and
yeah,
residential up above, which would utilize the clay hole behind it and the proximity to the park and bring more residents in. So I mean it could go a bunch of ways, and there's people that have strong financial incentives to try to initiate those things that it's not really incumbent on the city to it's they provide the boundaries for how it's zoned, but in terms of what specifically happens, that's still a kind of a market-driven phenomenon.
yeah.
So
And I mean, you hit the nail on the head with that. Sometimes when you see development happening and you see communities responsive like, oh, I really wish it was this instead of that. You don't really get to pick and choose who's deciding to make those sort of investments. You get to choose, you get to, deliberate and decide over, the details and making sure that, as far as in regard to like the planning process and codes and things, that everything is being done properly and making sure that it's, going to fit well. But you don't get to say, I'd rather have a Trader Joe's here. So,
I
sorry.
wasn't gonna say Trader Joe's,
No,
but
that's
yeah,
okay. I
but I
mean,
mean no, but I mean that's what everybody wants, and it's like
yeah,
they have a team of people looking to expand. If
right.
if it
Right. And
fit
then,
if it fit their profile, there would be one
well,
there.
and that's the thing too. I think that's another thing that you have to stop as a citizen and really think about is that those corporations and those companies are doing, the diligence and in order to really see if that makes economic sense. They're looking at demographics and land costs and, all of these sort of, financial things that really kind of fit into their model, whether or not they can, be able to have a store that's fully supported there. And as community members, we can wish for that and hope for that, but that has to make financial sense for a business to really, write that check, basically,
Well, and
and
it's
I
not
think
just a
big or
check.
small.
It's not just a check. I mean, it's a permanent commitment. It's a
Right.
staffing, the
Yep.
inventory. It's the whole. It's a long-term play. So that's what
Absolutely.
I when that's come up. I'm like, if it fit,
Yeah.
there would be one.
Yes.
They have people that have strong financial incentives to do that. They've got real estate brokers that are out scouting space, scouting locations. When that spot was empty, it was on everybody's radar. It was
Right.
listed. It's
Yes.
readily available. So somebody was considering it. I mean, I would say Trader Joe's, Fresh Time,
Yep.
Kowalski's. I mean, everybody was looking at it like, does this make sense or not?
Right. And
So,
I don't live in the grocer world as far as, the what their, overhead and cost projections, but I do know that, it's like the restaurant industry. It sounds like, they have very slim margins, and so they really do have to do that deep dive evaluation to find out whether or not, it's going to make a lot of sense to be, setting up shop in X location or to build a building in, Y location and that sort of thing. So, um we do have an economic development coordinator that's part of the city. She was hired on a couple of years ago.
mhm,
And the really great thing about having somebody like that in our city is that they are able to really take a deep dive into like what are some of the industries and entities that would be really great to have in this community and really kind of showcase, Chaska to interested parties or try to kind of get them to tour to kind of see if, industry can be brought in and really help support our existing industry in here to make sure that they feel like they are being given all the tools and resources that are available to them, that whether even it be through the city, the county, or the state, or federally. So,
mhm. Yeah.
yeah,
Speaking of that interplay between the state and the feds and the states and things, do you want to just brief before we wrap up to talk about the historic district and how what for one of the conversations that we've had in previous episodes is the cost benefit of moving the Ernst House, for example, in
yeah.
terms of what that does to avail the city to grant money to invest into the historic district. So you maybe talk a little bit about that because obviously with 41, that was a change for a lot of people in terms of taking away parking, for example, on northbound 41, and then the reinvestment back into the kind of off block corridors and things. So do you want to touch on that a little bit, or
Yeah.
you're going to punt
So,
that to Matt?
yeah, well, I mean, I think, okay, there's a lot to unpack with that question. Yeah, in regards to the Ernst House, which is the Chaska Yards is what it's called.
Hmm.
That building was moved and then redeveloped along with on the site that it sits now. The building was renovated, as well as there was three other homes that were built as part of in partnership with the CDA.
Yeah, I'm going to have
To have
Allison on. We don't
affordable
have to
housing.
dive too deep
Okay,
into
because I
that
was
one.
like,
I've got Allison
man,
on.
that one's not really okay.
No, no, that one,
Okay.
that's a whole nother issue.
It looks
I'm just talking
beautiful,
about in
but
general
oh,
with
so
respect to
yeah, I
the
mean,
hitching
so
posts and,
yeah, so everything that, infrastructure, we've built a lot of the infrastructure out for downtown um to help support both the businesses that reside downtown as well as the residents that reside downtown. Chaska's blessed with having a historical, community, lots of rich history, and just also, opportunities for bigger and smaller businesses to be a partner to the community. And so we have a downtown business alliance. It's a special service district within the city, made up of all the businesses that kind of reside in like a radius downtown that help provide events, but also, again, tools and resources that kind of help lend to their business. The goal also is just to provide, things like we have a Paseo network that's a mid-block pathway kind of through to the cities to kind of help, like you said, with pedestrians, like walkability. And we're also looking to enhance some of the activation of some of these sites to help draw people downtown so that they shop, dine, and really enjoy our historic district of Chaska. Uh, it's exciting to see some of the future coming about with with the businesses, with the activation of some of these spaces. One of the things that hopefully in the near future would be City Square West. We just learned that we are part of the bonding um, tour for both the Senate, state Senate, and the state House. So the state Senate will come this week, and then the House Capital Investment Committee will be coming next month to really tour the site. We have a little bit of a funding gap there that we're looking to try to get in order to start the redevelopment. And that City Square West site, for those that don't know, is where the Old National Bank, post office, and the shopping complex that houses like China Pagoda and the Chaska Market and the bakery.
Chaska, my love.
Chaska,
Gotta
my
give a shout out
love.
to gotta
Yep.
give a shout out to Gabby.
And
So
so that redevelopment of that block will provide a plaza. It will provide commercial, mercado, affordable housing as part of that as well, and parking. So it really checks a lot of boxes. And I think it will be a really nice tie into some of the other elements within the community that help really draw people in and activate the downtown with utilization of our community park as well.
terrific. Well, Taylor, I want to be respectful of your time. You had a hard stop, but I want to make sure that we. Is there anything you wanted to, any parting things or things that you want people to look at, or okay? So we when we started the podcast, we had something called the beer question, and it
Oh,
was if you were having a beer with somebody that was, in Chaska, what's the one thing you'd kind of want to, communicate to them?
um, I always want to communicate that at least for for myself, speaking for me, I'm an available person that is willing to set aside time to answer questions or have conversations about Chaska. I know that, when you had kind of referenced, some of the neighborhood groups and you hear the chatter and those commonly asked questions, that a lot of times when you see the commentary, I know people care a lot about this community, and I care about it as well. And so that's the kind of the common thread that weaves through us all. And so just being able to have those conversations, being able to have that dialogue, that shared love of Chaska, those are the things that are really important to me. And that, sometimes, decisions can be really challenging and difficult. But at the end of the day, it's, to best serve the community. And I'm always here and I'm always available and willing to have, I guess, a beer with people.
Twist
Although
your arm.
I'm more of a whiskey person than
Oh,
I
geez.
am a
Okay.
beer
Well, that's another
person. So I'll have an
podcast.
old fashioned while
Right? Oh.
you have your beer, I guess. So
Well, you could be with my mom in Wisconsin. That's kind of the evening rite of passage is an old fashioned. So,
yeah,
all right.
she sounds like a fabulous woman. So
All right. Well, Taylor, thank you again for being on. I really appreciate it. And I'll put a link to the development page of the city, with the city with the
yeah.
various things in the show notes. But thanks again for being on. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay.